Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Jay, and today I wanted to talk about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Back when Chip and Dale came out, people were saying it was a spiritual successor to this movie. Like I said in my original review, I don't want to compare the two, but after seeing the film for myself, I do not share that sentiment. But it did make me want to go back and revisit this movie. The film is based on a book called Who Censored Roger Rabbit by Gary Wolfe. Although the film takes a lot of liberties, although Wolfe was so impressed by the film that he actually retconned his own book as just a bad dream that Jessica had. The film takes place in a world where humans and cartoons live side by side, and follows Eddie Valiant, a detective working in Hollywood, but he's been struggling recently. Originally, he liked toons and often worked cases in Toontown, along with his partner, his brother Teddy, but while on the case, a toon attacked them, and it ended up killing Teddy, driving Eddie into an alcoholic stupor, and he now basically hates toons and has no patience for them, and goes out of his way to avoid Toontown. He's hired by R.K. Maroon, a film producer. He's been having trouble with his main star Roger Rabbit, whose performance has been lacking because he's been worried about his wife Jessica, so Maroon wants Valiant to get evidence of Jessica's infidelity to finally get Roger to move past her. He manages to photograph her playing patty cake with Marvin Acme, and Roger does not take the news well. Eddie collects his money and is going to put the whole thing behind him, but the next morning Acme turns up dead, and all the clues point to Roger, but one of his co-stars vouches for him, saying whoever did kill Acme was probably after his will, which promises Toontown to the Toons, because the town is sitting on some prime real estate, and without that will, any developer can come in and destroy it. But Eddie insists that he doesn't care and wants to avoid Toontown at all costs. However, he ends up finding evidence that the will does exist. On top of that, Roger's been hiding out in his apartment, and wants Eddie to help him prove his innocence, since he's the one who got him in this mess to begin with. He's also being hunted by a judge who wants to destroy him with a special concoction, one of the only things known to be able to kill toons. And since Eddie is so close to the case, they're hunting him too now. So it's up to the two of them to figure out who framed Roger Rabbit, or both of their lives could be on the line. It's a thrilling noir murder mystery, with a lot of crazy twists and turns. The acting and cinematography is great too. Everyone's taking this so seriously, despite the fantastical nature of what's going on, and it really helps sells it. There's one scene with no dialogue, and it relies solely on Bob Hoskins' performance. You see, Eddie borrowed the camera he used from his friend and colleague Dolores, but the camera still had old undeveloped film from a vacation they all took back in the day. Hoskins does such a great job conveying the emotions that Eddie is feeling as he looks through them, first of delight as he relives these old memories, but then it turns to grief as he gets to the pictures of Teddy. It's clear he hasn't been able to work through his trauma, which is made obvious when the camera pans over to Teddy's desk. It's covered in dust because it hasn't been touched since Teddy died. The camera then pans to show photos of important moments in the Valiants' lives. The music, the acting, the cinematography all comes together to really deliver a great scene. Christopher Lloyd also delivers an amazing performance. He's really goofy, but also really menacing, and it's just perfect for the movie. I also appreciate how much they put into the animation. The animators noticed that sometimes when incorporating animation into live-action sequences, it often looked off, like the live-action actors and animated assets weren't existing in the same space despite the fact that they were supposed to be. So they came up with specific rules to make sure that wasn't the case in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The first rule was to maintain eyeline between all the characters. All the live-action performances were shot first, and then the animation was drawn over it, and they took extra care to make sure that all the eye lines were correct, even if that meant having to squash and stretch the characters. And considering the fact that this was made before tracking technology was available, this is really impressive. All this had to be done by hand. The second rule was to maintain the illusion of interaction, and this isn't only about the live actors, but the environment around the toons as well. Most of the time, the toons interact with real objects, even though they could have just drawn them in, like giving the characters animated guns or animated cigars. It would have been easier that way, but instead Baby Herman is holding an actual cigar, along with other props. They achieved this by creating rigs that they could draw over. This all helps sells the fact that these toons are really there. The same thing goes for any objects that the toons bump into. It looks like the objects are being affected by the toons, and they have a real weight and presence. The last rule was to keep the shadow and lighting on the characters consistent. This in my opinion is the most impressive of the three, because of how much work they put into it. This is where the toons are shaded so they're actually being affected by the light sources in the scenes, the same way the human actors are. And they got really technical with this. One scene that was particularly challenging was a scene where the characters bump into a lamp that was hanging from the ceiling. The lamp swings around, which obviously causes the light source to change rapidly, so they took the time to make sure that the light and shadows that were animated on Roger's body were consistent with the rest of the characters, and the shadow that he cast was accurate the entire time. The attention to detail and care they put into this scene is really impressive, and a labor of love. Nowadays they would have just used really crummy CGI and not even bothered to make sure the frame rate matches the environment around the characters or the objects they're interacting with. But here, the passion of the animators really shines through, and I think that's what really sets Who Framed Roger Rabbit apart. They took the time to really flesh out this world and give it its own internal logic to the point where it feels realistic despite how fantastical the universe really is. If I had to nitpick something, I guess I'm a little confused with how the toons work in certain areas. There's a part where Jessica knocks out Roger with a frying pan, but early in the movie it's established that toons can take basically any amount of punishment. Roger even hits himself with a frying pan repeatedly, and all that happens is that he gets dizzy, so I'm a bit confused how he ended up getting knocked out. Same thing with Benny getting nervous about Roger pointing a gun at him. He even says this isn't a cartoon, which I think could make sense if they were just actors who could get damaged like anybody else, but the movie already established that toons work on cartoon logic even in their everyday lives. But that's just an observation. Overall, the movie's great. The amazing animation and cinematography, the intriguing story, and likable characters just really make this movie something special. So those are my thoughts on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. What did you think of this movie? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to our channel's members: Stutania, Tyrant Carnivore, Adam K, Shiny Orc Boy, The Rabbit Mancer, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Sandy Martin, Verdant Range, Butcher7 Actual, Dash Hound, JVR, Hussyman42, Nixel, Eric Griffin, Phantom of the Night, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Caleb Nelson, Shrike Z, Bandito Bane, Hunter Rose, Dakari the Professor, and Jacob Garcia, aka Lightning the Steam Tank Engine. Thank you all so much for your support. If you'd like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. We also have a buy me coffee if you want to support us that way. But if you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel, which helps us out a lot too, and it's free. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye for now.